Welcome to Australia for round one of the 1998 FIA Formula One World Championship. The circuit set in Melbourne's beautiful Albert Park gives spectators a panoramic view of the city. As the teams complete the final preparations on the cars, the drivers prepare themselves mentally. It's an all-McLaren front row with Häkkinen taking pole. His teammate, David Coulthard, is lining up alongside him. Michael Schumacher starts third, a worrying 0.7 of a second adrift. As the lights go out, the 1998 season gets underway. There's trouble at the back. That's Barrichello pulling to the side with gearbox problems. The two McLarens lead the field down to the first turn. Häkkinen leads as the pack filter through without incident. Häkkinen is leading, Coulthard is second, and Michael Schumacher is third. The Ferrari driver is putting the pressure on DC, having a go around the outside, but the Scotsman calmly keeps his line, holding off the German. Ralf Schumacher's diving around the outside of Magnussen, but they touch, both ending the day in the gravel with Takagi following. More trouble for the Schumacher family. There's smoke coming from the back of Michael's car. The Ferrari engine gives up completely. Pulling off the circuit, the Ferrari ace couldn't have had a worse start to the season, and his frustration shows. With reigning world champion Jacques Villeneuve now battling hard with Fisichella for position. Irvine and Frentzen are in for their pit stops together, and the Germans out first. The McLarens are way out in front. But that's the leader, Häkkinen, coming into the pits. His crew are nowhere to be seen, as Mika drives straight through, with Coulthard now in the lead. Frentzen momentarily loses concentration after being lapped by the leader, giving Fisichella a chance to move alongside, leaving his braking late, and Giancarlo takes his position. Mika Häkkinen's in for his final stop. His pit crew are well drilled. Action at the front as Coulthard has now lapped third place Frentzen. Irvine is fourth, a lap down, while Häkkinen is not far behind his teammate and in hot pursuit. Into the final few laps now, the McLaren Mercedes are dominating, circulating 1-2. Coulthard and Häkkinen are on the pit straight with 3 laps to go, and David slowing, letting his teammate go by. Mika's into the lead at Albert Park. Mika Häkkinen rounds the last corner to win the first Grand Prix of 1998, with reason to be grateful to Coulthard.
What David did was just remarkable, and looking back in history, I don't have seen many drivers doing things like this, so I have to thank you very much.
The Interlagos circuit, Sao Paulo, Brazil, for round 2. The fans are out in force. As Mika Häkkinen takes his second successive pole position, Coulthard is lining up second, and Michael Schumacher third. The drivers anticipate the start, and off they blast. The McLarens are away well. Michael Schumacher is passed by Irvine and Wirtz. As Häkkinen leads the pack down to the first corner, Michael Schumacher and Wirtz are side by side approaching the centre S, as Alexander keeps his position. Race order: Häkkinen, Coulthard, Frentzen, Irvine, Wirtz, and Michael Schumacher. That's Ralf Schumacher out, having not completed a single racing lap so far this season. With the race leader Häkkinen now, Coulthard's right behind, and they're already beginning to open up a huge lead. And continuing to do so, Mika setting the fastest lap. Michael Schumacher's not hanging around either, passing Eddie Irvine for 4th place. Takagi's race is over, his blown engine creating a hazard. Fresh from a pit stop, Schumacher wastes no time getting past Fisichella's Benetton. Frentzen's watching how it's done. Now it's his turn. He takes his Williams into the points. A narrow escape for Alesi as Irvine just avoids slamming into the Sauber. David Coulthard is in for his one and only pit stop. The crew get to work under the watchful eye of Adrian Newey as Jacques Villeneuve moves up the inside of Parnis, passing the Frenchman at turn 1. It's Häkkinen's turn for a stop now. Back on track, and the battle for 7th is led by Alesi as Villeneuve passes Irvine. In car with Alexander Wirtz in 6th place, chasing Frentzen. Michael Schumacher's exiting the pits after a slow stop. As Frentzen and Wirtz are bearing down, Alexander has the speed and slips past Heinz Harald as Schumacher gets back on track in 3rd. Coulthard is flying around in 2nd position. The McLarens pushing their Bridgestones to the maximum. DC is catching Häkkinen now, but as the two McLarens come around in formation to cross the finishing line, it's Mika's day, making it 2 in a row. Coulthard is second, the McLaren's second 1-2 of the season. Mika's year couldn't have got off to a better start, leading the championship from teammate David Coulthard by 8 points. While Michael Schumacher is happy with third place today. Häkkinen thanks his team for a job well done. We stay in South America for round 3. This time Buenos Aires, Argentina is the venue. Local boy Esteban Suero lines up in 19th, while David Coulthard takes his first pole position of the year. With Häkkinen only third, Michael Schumacher starts on the front row in second as the field race off the grid. Wheels spinning as the 22 drivers charge down to the first corner, led by the two McLarens, David Coulthard in front. Michael Schumacher has dropped down to third. Dry ice is thrown in all directions as the field come around on their first lap. Häkkinen is receiving the close attention of Michael Schumacher. The Ferrari driver is looking for a way past. He sees a gap but thinks better of it. Undeterred, Michael is keeping the pressure on. The German is right under the Finn's rear wing now. Coulthard's beginning to pull out a lead and Schumacher can see him disappearing, while Irvine chases Frentzen. Michael sees a gap and he's through to second place and sets off after DC. Irvine and Frentzen are battling for fourth place. Eddie squeezes Heinz Harald onto the grass to take position. Back at the front and Michael Schumacher's pressuring Coulthard for first place. The gear shift problem has caused David to run wide and Michael spotted the gap. Can he squeeze through? No, they've collided. DC is spinning and Schumacher's into the lead. The replay shows a substantial impact with damage to the Scotsman's car. Schumacher's really pushing now, setting a new fastest lap. Lap 28 and Schumacher's in for his first pit stop, while Villeneuve is pulling out of Coulthard's slipstream as they approach the turn. The Canadian has the line and takes position. Heinz Harald's on a charge, as is Alexander Wirtz, setting a new fastest lap time before coming in for his pit stop. In car with Häkkinen now, temporarily in first place, but he still has to pit, which he does now. Michael Schumacher's back into the lead, while Johnny Herbert is forced to retire with a damaged tyre. Schumacher exits the pits in front of Häkkinen as Coulthard has a coming together with Villeneuve. David continues, but Jacques' race is over. Wirtz is diving inside Irvine, but Eddie firmly closes the door. Back with Schumacher, who now has a good lead, and he's run wide over the gravel, but manages to keep the Ferrari moving. Michael has found an escape road and rejoins still in the lead, just avoiding Nakano's Minardi. Michael Schumacher crosses the finishing line to take his first win of the season, to the jubilation of the Ferrari fans and the Ferrari team, with Häkkinen finishing second and Irvine third. Michael and Jean Todt celebrate the Ferrari comeback. Deep in the heart of Ferrari territory for the San Marino Grand Prix. But it's the two McLarens standing at the front. Coulthard takes his second successive pole with Mika just behind him in second. But the fans are here to support Ferrari. Schumacher lines up third, Irvine fourth. With the drivers at the ready, and the race is on. Both McLarens are getting a good start, but Irvine is bogged down and slipping back. Coulthard is leading from Häkkinen, Schumacher is third, Villeneuve is up to fourth. Rounding Tamburello now, and Coulthard is beginning to pull away as the field snake around. And that's a Stewart in trouble, Barrichello losing control after losing his rear wing on the approach to the turn. A replay at the start from Villeneuve's cockpit, passing Irvine for fourth and pressuring Schumacher. Coulthard is opening up a lead to Häkkinen in second place, who has a comfortable gap between himself and Michael Schumacher in third, while DC sets the fastest lap time. And Schumacher's past Häkkinen. Mika has a problem, and team boss Ron Dennis is calling him in. The Finn with a broken gearbox and is forced to pull in for good on lap 17. That's a Benetton in the gravel trap. It's Fisichella going off at the Villeneuve corner. The view from Wirtz's car showing Giancarlo losing it on the approach, and that's Alexander out as well. His engine blowing Benetton's race. With Coulthard now, who has a 17-point lead over Michael Schumacher as he takes his first pit stop. Schumacher's in on the same lap, the Ferrari crew giving him a first-class service. On board with Eddie Irvine, and a quick stop by the Ferrari number 2 sees him exit the pits in 3rd place. Lap 44 and David Coulthard is in for fuel and tyres to take him to the end of the race. A quick stop sees DC just in front of Michael Schumacher, but the German still has to stop. Braking hard as he enters the pit lane. Back out and setting fastest laps, Michael is beginning to catch David, the gap coming down to just 12 seconds. On the last lap now, and Coulthard only has a couple of corners left, but Schumacher isn't far behind. And Coulthard takes the checkered flag and his first win of the year, with Michael Schumacher just behind in 2nd, Eddie Irvine is 3rd. DC waves to the crowd, a well-earned win that takes him to within 3 points of Mika Häkkinen at the top of the points table. But Schumacher's not far behind on 20 points, and Irvine's 11 mean that Ferrari are taking the fight to McLaren in the Constructors. Frentzen and Wirtz round off the top 6 drivers.
So I was perfectly comfortable to let that gap reduce, because I knew that I could go a little bit quicker. So the only worry in doing something like that is that if you get a problem, then you don't have so much time in hand.
Barcelona in Spain, and round 5 of the Formula 1 Championship. King Juan Carlos of Spain meets Mika Häkkinen, who's on pole for the 3rd time this season. David Coulthard lines up in 2nd, whilst Michael Schumacher starts in 3rd. The adrenaline is pumping as Häkkinen and Coulthard lead the field off the grid. A clean start from the McLaren drivers, but Michael Schumacher is dropping back. Fisichella's up to 3rd with Irvine alongside him as Häkkinen leads Coulthard into Elf, the first corner. Eddie Irvine has the inside line and takes 3rd place of Giancarlo, a great start by the Irishman. There's trouble further back, and that's Frentzen and Lacey tangling and ending up in the gravel. Heinz Howard is in for a new nose, dropping him to the tail of the field. Rubens Barrichello's having a great race, taking his Stewart Ford up to 7th place, but charging hard behind are Villeneuve and Herbert. It's a double blow for Arrows and Tom Walkinshaw as Deniz and Sarlo's engines both let go simultaneously. With Michael Schumacher, who's now up in 3rd position and pushing his Goodyear shop Ferrari to try and get on terms with the McLarens. Lap 26 and leader Mika Häkkinen is in for his first of 2 scheduled stops. It's David Coulthard's turn now. Back with the action, and Fisichella is looking around the outside of Irvine. They've touched and both are off. The dust may take a while to settle on this one as the hot Italian remonstrates with Eddie. The replay shows the 2 drivers side by side at nearly 200 miles an hour before Fisichella turns in. Michael Schumacher's race chances have been damaged. He's been given a stop-go penalty for speeding in the pit lane. His punishment served, he rejoins. While the McLaren crew attend to Häkkinen's car in his 2nd scheduled stop. As Mika leaves, David comes in for his service. Racing to the end now, Mika Häkkinen leads the way. A quick stop for Michael Schumacher by the Ferrari team, and the German exits the pit lane and is back on track in 3rd place. But it's Mika Häkkinen back on form after the last 2 races, who's dominating this Grand Prix, well out in front. The championship points leader rounds the last corner to take the checkered flag and his 3rd win of the year. It's the McLaren Mercedes' 4th win out of 5 races, and Mika acknowledges the support of his adoring fans. David Coulthard comes home in 2nd.
You know, Mika really was at one with his car this weekend, and I wasn't able to keep pace, so congratulations to him.
Monte Carlo in the tiny Principality of Monaco is the home to Rich and Famous, with many celebrities visiting the Grand Prix. It has an atmosphere no other circuit on the calendar can match. Also unmatched is Mika Häkkinen on pole again. With Coulthard 2nd and Fisichella 3rd, Schumacher is pushed down to 4th on the grid. And the race is underway. 21 drivers charge down to the first turn. Mika Häkkinen leads Coulthard around Saint-Devote as the rest of the field thread their way through without incident. Racing up the hill, Fisichella's 3rd and Schumacher's 4th. Rounding Los, and Villeneuve tries a move around the outside of Barrichello. Mika's beginning to pull out a gap. As Irvine dives up the inside of Frentzen, giving him a nudge, the Williams driver is finished for today. In car with Coulthard now in second position and beginning to catch the tail enders. And DC's Mercedes engine has let go, coming out of the tunnel, and he parks his McLaren. Fisichella, now up to second, is at home on this narrow, twisty street circuit. The first round of pit stops have begun and Schumacher's in from third. Race leader Häkkinen's also in, and a quick stop sees Mika back out in front. That's Michael Schumacher, who sees an opportunity to get past Wirtz. They've touched, but Alexander isn't giving up, and he gets back past Michael at the next right-hander. But the Ferrari driver has another go up the inside, and that's a harder knock this time as Schumacher goes through. His car, though, is in trouble. Michael has damaged his car at the incident, but Ross Brawn is telling his driver to get back into the hot seat. Meanwhile, Mika is streets ahead of the rest. A huge shunt as we join Alexander Wirtz in car. The Austrian's Benetton has had several heavy impacts with the Armco coming out of the tunnel, and now is sliding helplessly with no steering or brakes down to the chicane and into the tyre barrier. Thankfully, he's okay. Fisichella in the second Benetton is getting it all wrong at La Rascasse, spinning violently, but fortunately for him, there's no damage. Up to fourth, and Alesi's gearbox fails him, the troublesome Sauber bringing Jean to his knees. No such problems for this man though. Mika Häkkinen is on his last lap and comes round to win the Monaco Grand Prix. Schumacher ends a miserable day, just avoiding 6th place Diniz.
I mean, winning Monte Carlo is always a dream, always has been a dream. I think it's most of the Grand Prix drivers' victory of the Monte Carlo is something very special for them, and this now happened to me.
Montreal, Canada, and the Gilles Villeneuve circuit for round 7. David Coulthard is in pole position, Häkkinen starts second, and Michael Schumacher is third. Sly Stallone keeps Villeneuve company back in 6th. Understart his orders, and go! Ralf Schumacher's stalled on the grid, one of the Prosts just avoiding him. The field streamed down to the tight first turn, braking hard. And that's Wirtz taking to the air over Alesi and barrel rolling across the gravel. Jean is forced to take a tight line into the corner, and Alexander has nowhere to go. The race has been stopped. Wirtz gives his team the thumbs up as he runs back to the pits to join Alesi and the rest of the grid for the restart. Take 2, and Coulthard is off the line well, but Mika Häkkinen has a problem. No gears as the field rush past him. The cars are bunched up and approaching the turn, and that's Ralf Schumacher out of shape and spinning in front of the charging field. Hills through safely, but not so lucky as Jean Alesi, as truly double parks. The safety car is called upon to restore order and leaves with Coulthard leading Schumacher. Fisichella is third, Villeneuve 4th, Franson is 5th, and Barrichello is 6th. Diniz loses control of his arrows, taking to the grass and laying down a hazard. Schumacher is applying the pressure to Coulthard. As Diniz continues on his way, his car a little soiled. With DC, his throttle linkage is broken, allowing Schumacher into the lead. Salo's out after a heavy impact, the debris needing to be cleared. Pitting while under the safety car, Schumacher's taken a cunning stop and is racing out of the pits as Frentzen bears down. He's given his fellow countryman no room, and Heinz Harald has nowhere to go except off-road and into the gravel. Patrick Head is understandably upset. As the safety car leaves, Fisichella is leading Jacques Villeneuve on his home track, the world champions on a charge. Tucked right under Fisichella's rear wing. The Canadian's on the outside, heavy on the brakes into the turn, and he's overdone it and runs straight across the gravel. Jacques has pushed too hard. Schumacher receives a penalty for his part in the incident with Frentzen as Fisichella leads. Michael comes out behind his old sparring partner Hill, who's defending his second place, but Schumacher takes it. Fisichella's in for his one and only pit stop, which will be crucial to the outcome of the race. While Schumacher's taking the opportunity to put in some scorching laps before making his stop. And Schumacher's exiting the pit lane as Fisichella races down the straight. The Ferrari driver's into the lead in Montreal. Michael Schumacher crosses the line to win the Canadian Grand Prix, his second of the year. With Eddie Irvine third, Ferrari are jubilant. After 7 rounds, Mika Häkkinen leads Michael Schumacher in the driver's standings by 12 points. Coulthard is beginning to drop back in third on 29 and Irvine is fourth, giving McLaren 75 points to Ferrari's 53. The two Benetton drivers round off the top 6 while Frentzen and Villeneuve are 7th and 8th. Magny-Cours and the French Grand Prix for round 8 of the World Championship. Mika Häkkinen is on pole for the 5th time this year. Schumacher starts 2nd and Coulthard 3rd. Kick-off in France, but the yellow grid lights are lit, signalling an aborted start. Verstappen is stranded on the grid as the drivers race off. An unfortunate start for Jos, who replaces the underperforming Magnussen at the Stewart Ford team. With passing difficult, Mika Häkkinen will be hoping to make another good start, which could be crucial to this race. The grid's lined up and the lights are out. Michael Schumacher gets a flying start. Irvine's looking for a way around the McLarens and finds one to move into 2nd place. The two Ferraris are out in front, taking the initiative, leading the field around. After 2 laps, Schumacher leads Irvine, Häkkinen is 3rd, Coulthard 4th, Villeneuve 5th and Ralf Schumacher is 6th. Eddie Irvine is attracting the attention of the two McLarens now. The pressure's on the Irishman, who has to help Schumacher. And that's Häkkinen. He's thrown his McLaren off the circuit in front of the pit lane, but manages to keep it going in 4th. But the Finn has some catching up to do now. Michael Schumacher's in for fuel and tyres. It's a quick one as Irvine comes in. Michael drives past. Jacques Villeneuve is up to 2nd place now, but he's due for a pit stop any time. Michael Schumacher's back at the front and leading this race comfortably. Mika Häkkinen, back in 3rd place, has been unable to make an impression on Eddie Irvine, who's into the pits. Schumacher's next for his 2nd stop. And then it's Mika's turn. There are problems for Coulthard though. The crew can't get his fuel hose to connect. He's stationary for nearly 37 seconds with no fuel taken on. The team decide to send him back out. No problems for Schumacher and Ferrari though. Michael is cruising out front, while Eddie Irvine is managing to keep Häkkinen at bay. There's chaos further down the field as Takagi pulls off. The Ford engine has had enough for today, while a Benetton and Sauber slip up in his oil. Nearing the end of the race, and the battle for 2nd place between Irvine and Häkkinen is intensifying. But it's Michael Schumacher, who's led all day, who comes round to win the French Grand Prix for the 4th time and his 2nd race in a row. The race for 2nd position isn't over though. Häkkinen is having one last stab up the inside of Irvine as both drivers literally throw their cars at the finishing line. But it's Irvine who takes the flag, and Ferrari's first one too since 1990. Ferrari take maximum points at Magny-Cours, which moves them to within 11 points of McLaren at the top of the constructors' standings, with Benetton and Williams a long way behind.
A couple of things come obviously together. As you say, 30th win, very important for the championship. I don't know whether there has ever been a 1-2 of Ferrari. We definitely have done it now.
The band's prepared to play in the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Music to McLaren's ears as Häkkinen takes pole position, with Schumacher starting 2nd, Villeneuve is 3rd. All eyes are on the lights as the Battle of Britain begins. Häkkinen gets away well, as does Alesi. Häkkinen retains his advantage, leading Schumacher around Copse. David Coulthard's up to 3rd, Alesi's 4th and Villeneuve is 5th. Michael Schumacher's wasting no time harrying Mika's McLaren, but he'd better watch his mirrors. David Coulthard is on a charge, giving the German no respite. Häkkinen's beginning to pull out a lead as David Coulthard pulls out from behind the Ferrari and alongside Schumacher into Abbey. Side by side on the slippery track, and he takes 2nd place. Action further back, Ralf Schumacher's giving his old teammate Fisichella a hard time, taking the inside line and slicing his way through the field. As is Eddie Irvine. After becoming stuck in 3rd gear at the start and losing early places, he's picking them up now, passing Frentzen for 5th. Michael Schumacher's really getting the hammer down, setting the fastest lap. Still no points for Jordan as Hill spins out of his home Grand Prix. Schumacher's in for an early pit stop, and it's a quick one. It's DC's turn, in from second position. The pit crew clear his vision and put on fresh intermediate tyres. Mika Häkkinen's in for a full set of wets, different tactics at McLaren. Mika Salo's caught out by the treacherous track on lap 27. His race is over. Conditions are deteriorating and DC's intermediates are just not up to the job as he spins out of second and out of the race. Michael's in for his second pit stop, his pit crew calm and efficient as he navigates his way out of the wet pit lane. And Mika's lost it at bridge, the ultra-fast right-hander across the gravel, across the grass, and he's lucky to rejoin still in the lead. But is his car okay? Trouble for Trulli 2 on this treacherous track. There's so much standing water on the circuit that the safety car is called upon to slow the pace down, with the consequence that Häkkinen's lead has been washed away. The race is on and Michael Schumacher comes out of the spray and after Häkkinen. Mika is under enormous pressure now and he's blown it, running wide at Beckett's. Schumacher is the new race leader. Visibility is poor as the Ferrari ace comes round to lap Wirtz, but there's a waved yellow flag. Schumacher has to serve a stop-go penalty and does so on his last lap, crossing the finishing line on the way to his pit. Whilst Mika Häkkinen brings his McLaren round to take the checkered flag on the track. Confusion reigns, but Michael is awarded the victory. With Häkkinen second and Irvine third, Jean Todt enjoys having his two drivers on the podium. Onto the A1 ring in Austria for round 10. The first wet qualifying session since 1994 sees Giancarlo Fisichella in pole position, with Jean Alesi taking his Sauber to new heights and second on the grid. Championship contenders Häkkinen and Schumacher are pushed down to third and fourth. Lose the lights and the power is down. Mika Häkkinen is quick off the mark, as is Jos Verstappen, who squeezes Coulthard. Häkkinen has the speed as he pulls alongside Fisichella, approaching the first turn and into the lead. That's Takagi losing it, hitting Tuero and forcing Herbert off. Häkkinen's leading, Schumacher second, Fisichella's third. Deniz slides into his teammate, and Villeneuve's held up, but there's even worse for Coulthard. The arrows donuts into his wing. DC continues, but Salo is finished. The safety car is out whilst debris is cleared. Coulthard takes the opportunity to pit and have a replacement nose before rejoining at the back. The race is on and the field are picking up speed. There's nothing between them as they cross the line after 3 laps. Michael Schumacher's having a lunge around the outside of Häkkinen. He's braking late and runs wide, allowing Fisichella to get by into second place. The Jordans are running 8th and 9th as Wirtz passes Verstappen, both running wide. Schumacher wastes no time stealing second place off Fisichella, and he's back in pursuit of Häkkinen. Mika is under pressure as Michael charges up the rear of the McLaren. Schumacher runs wide, bouncing over the gravel and damaging his Ferrari, but somehow manages to find the track, but losing time in the process. Frenson's race is over, his Mechachrome blowing spectacularly. Front row drivers Fisichella and Alesi are battling for 5th now. Jean turns in and he's hit by the Benetton. The Frenchman tries to get going, but both are eliminated. David Coulthard makes up for his bad start and is slicing his way through the field. As teammate Mika Häkkinen pits for fuel and tyres. Coulthard's next, now up to second. With his front wing repaired, Michael is on a charge and narrowly avoids hitting his brother. He doesn't give up though, with Ralph holding him up for a further 4 laps before Michael eventually dives down the inside and gets past. Up to 4th now, Schumacher's driving considerably quicker than his teammate and passes Irvine for 3rd. But it's Mika's day, taking his 5th win of the season and pleasing the team with Coulthard in second.
It was excellent victory. I think the team played a very important part of this race, and I was able to charge and go flat out all the time. I did not have any problems really.
Long straights characterise Hockenheim, the circuit hosting the German Grand Prix. Mika Häkkinen is on pole for the 7th time this year, and with Coulthard in second, it's an all-McLaren front row. Schumacher starts 9th. Race fan Boris Becker has come to see the action close up. Keep the revs up and drop the clutch. Schumacher's avoiding the slow-starting Benetton as both the Jordans drive past Villeneuve, and Häkkinen leads Coulthard around the first corner. It's a clean start as all the drivers get around safely. Race order: Häkkinen, Coulthard, Ralf Schumacher and Villeneuve's got past Hill. Michael Schumacher's alongside Fisichella as they approach the chicane. It's close racing as the drivers are flat out at over 200 miles per hour. Irvine's overcooked it running wide at the chicane, and that's allowed Schumacher to get by. The Prost team's fortune aren't improving, Harness jumping the start. An amazing performance by Ralf Schumacher in third place, who's pushing the McLarens. But Eddie Jordan looks concerned. Ralf has to pit twice, whereas most of the other drivers are only stopping once. Will the strategy work? It will be difficult as the Jordan driver rejoins in ninth. Action further down the field as Verstappen passes Salo's arrows. Jacques Villeneuve's now up to third place and he's into the pits for his only stop. Häkkinen's in as well with less than half the race to go. Ralf Schumacher's pressuring Villeneuve and it shows as the Canadian runs wide. Coulthard pits from first place, but he's overshot his garage, costing him valuable seconds in his battle to keep the lead. It's close, but Häkkinen regains first. The McLarens are running 1-2 now, but Villeneuve is not far behind. But there's a problem with Mika's car. Not enough fuel went in at his stop, and he has to run the engine lean. Irvine runs wide as he fights with Fisichella. Ralf Schumacher's in for his second stop. While Mika, who's down on power, has to defend his position from the chasing DC. In car with Villeneuve, passing a back marker and in hot pursuit of the McLarens. Michael Schumacher's having a torrid race, having to fight with his uncompetitive Ferrari. Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard round the final corner to take McLaren's fifth 1-2 of the season, and Mika's second successive win. With Villeneuve third and Damon Hill fourth, Michael Schumacher ends the day in fifth at his home circuit. Mika Häkkinen now leads Michael Schumacher in the drivers' standings by 16 points. Coulthard is third, 10 points ahead of fourth place Irvine. That means McLaren lead Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship by 26 points. 1 point separates fifth place Wirtz and sixth place Villeneuve. Giancarlo Fisichella is seventh, Frentzen is eighth, Barrichello ninth, and Ralf Schumacher, Salo and Hill round off the top 12 drivers. David Coulthard congratulates his teammates on a well-driven race, while Jacques celebrates his and Williams' most competitive showing of the season. The Hungaroring Budapest for the Hungarian Grand Prix. The fans are out in force. Mika Häkkinen is on pole again. David Coulthard starts second, whilst Michael Schumacher is half a second off Mika's time in third. The Jordans are improving with Damon Hill lining up fourth. Countdown to the start, and off they blast. The two McLarens are away well, while Schumacher is managing to hold off Hill for third. Racing down to the first turn, and Häkkinen leads Coulthard as Irvine gets past Hill. Häkkinen already opening out a lead as the pack jockey for position. As the field come around to complete the first lap, the top six are Häkkinen, Coulthard, Schumacher, Irvine, Hill and Villeneuve. Eddie Irvine is out early with gearbox failure as we join Schumacher in car and in touch with the McLarens. But Häkkinen is responding, storming round and setting a new fastest lap. Michael's in for his pit stop and the Ferrari crew are ready. Mika's having to cope with getting past the back markers as Coulthard exits the pits in second, just in front of third place Villeneuve and Schumacher, who's dropped to fourth. It's Mika's turn now and the team do a professional job to get him back out in first place, ahead of his teammate DC. But Michael Schumacher's back up to third and chasing down the two McLarens. Ferrari have brought Michael in for an early second stop and McLaren are going to have to respond. They do so, bringing in David Coulthard. It's a quick stop, but is it quick enough? Coulthard has to observe the pit lane speed limit as Michael Schumacher passes by on track to take second place. In car of the German now as he puts pedal to metal. Mika Häkkinen blasts out of the pits after his second stop as Michael Schumacher's flying down the straight and he's through into first place. Mika is down to second. But Schumacher's pushing too hard and runs wide onto the grass, but he manages to keep it going, no damage done. Häkkinen has a problem and is dropping back. Coulthard is now in second, but Michael needs to pit again. And he's setting some sensational lap times to pull out enough of a gap and come back out in the lead. It's a quick stop, but it's going to be close. The Ferrari ace exits the pits and rejoins, retaining his first place. Damon Hill is right behind the stricken McLaren and easily nips by to take another position off Häkkinen. Frentzen takes his turn, demoting Häkkinen to 6th. And Schumacher adds to Mika's misery by lapping him and takes the victory.
I mean, you dream about the ideal result, and that was one of the dreams I had, but I thought it's staying a dream. The maximum I was thinking to achieve was being first and Mika second. What happened today is obviously ideal for the championship.
Ideal indeed, as Schumacher moves to within 7 points of Mika. And the Spa-Francorchamps circuit for round 13. Conditions are far from ideal. With someone with a clear track in front of them is Mika Häkkinen starting on pole. Coulthard is lining up second, while a storming lap by Hill places him third on the grid. The circuit is drenched as they peel off the grid. Hill is bogged down while Häkkinen leads the charging pack down to La Source. Coulthard's out of shape, bouncing off the barrier and across the accelerating field. There's a chain reaction with drivers nowhere to go but into each other, complete mayhem. Wheels and debris flying in all directions. Thankfully, all the drivers are able to vacate their wrecks unaided. 18 of the 22 drivers are back on the grid for the restart, and off they go. Damon Hill's having a much better start this time, and he's pulling alongside Häkkinen approaching the corner, and he's through to first place. Michael Schumacher's challenging Häkkinen around the outside, forcing the Finn into a spin. He's then collected by Herbert. Both drivers are out of the race. Hill leads as Michael Schumacher passes his teammate for second place. Coulthard and Verge take a trip across the gravel as Schumacher puts the pressure on Damon. With 4 wins here on a wet track, the odds are in Schumacher's favour, and Eddie knows it. Lap 7 and Schumacher pulls out a brave move on the outside around Blanchemont. He's got the line into the bus stop chicane and takes first place. The first round of pit stops have begun and Schumacher Jr.'s in. Now it's the turn of Schumacher Sr. with enough of a lead to get back out in first. Hill's in from second place and the crew adjust his wing. John Lacey's having a good race up to 4th. He loves these sort of conditions. The weather's deteriorating as Michael Schumacher, who's peerless in the wet, fights his way through the tail-enders. Jacques Villeneuve gets it all wrong, sliding off the track and has a long walk back to the garage. But Michael Schumacher's getting frustrated, shaking his fist, and he comes round to lap the McLaren of David Coulthard. At over 2 seconds a lap quicker, Michael shouldn't find it too difficult to get past. But with visibility poor, the German follows closely, too closely, and he's rammed the back of the McLaren. The furious Ferrari driver's on his way to the McLaren garage to have a word with DC, but his team hold him back, trying to keep him at a safe distance this time. Meanwhile, the Jordans are running 1-2, Hill's leading with Ralf Schumacher in second place. There's more drama as Giancarlo Fisichella slams into the back of Nakano's Minardi, both drivers unharmed. And Damon Hill comes round to take Jordan's first victory.
I'm very, very happy, obviously. It was a great day for Jordan. I'm absolutely delighted. I'm really quite lost for words, actually.
The Jordan drivers finishing first and second, Jean Lacey takes the final podium position. Historic Monza, set in the beautiful countryside outside Milan, is the venue for the Italian Grand Prix. The home of Ferrari brings the passionate tifosi and celebrities rolling in. Michael Schumacher and Ferrari both have something to celebrate this weekend. The German takes his first pole position of the year, and it's the Italian team's 600th Grand Prix. Apprehension mounts as the 22 drivers wait for the signal to go. Häkkinen is off the grid well and moving to the front. But it's an appalling start for Schumacher, who drops from first to fifth as Coulthard, Villeneuve and Irvine pass him. Racing down to the first chicane, Häkkinen is leading the tightly packed field. Frentzen takes to the grass, but they're all through. Schumacher's recovering, taking a position back from Villeneuve as he moves up to 4th. Mika Häkkinen leads, David Coulthard second. Michael Schumacher has just passed his teammate and is up to 3rd. Mika has a problem, he slows down and DC's through to lead the Italian Grand Prix. Meanwhile, Damon Hill, who started this race in 14th position, is making up places with some daring overtaking, this time putting one over on Villeneuve. Häkkinen in second place is under pressure from the flying Ferrari of Schumacher. And that's Coulthard, his Mercedes engine has blown his race. That allows Schumacher to close right up on Häkkinen, pressuring the Finn to take a tight line through the corner. And Michael has the speed as they come out of the turn, and he's through to lead at Monza. The German's in for his only stop of the race. With a 9-second lead on Häkkinen, he'll come out in second, but Mika, now leading, still has to stop. Irvine exits the pits from 4th place. Mika's suffering from handling problems, and the team now have a chance to rectify them. Michael Schumacher's back in the lead. With Villeneuve, and he's lost grip coming out of the second Lesmo, and he's out of the race. Häkkinen's in trouble, losing it at high speed. A problem with the brakes sends him flying across the gravel. Mika's back on track and still in second, but soon in the clutches of Eddie Irvine. Ralf Schumacher's also managed to pass the stricken McLaren to take the final podium position, as brother Michael races down the home straight to win on Ferrari's home soil. Teamwork paying off. Schumacher levels the scores in the Drivers' Championship. Mika and Michael on 80 points apiece with 2 races left. The battle for third is between Coulthard and Irvine with 10 points separating them. David has the advantage. Villeneuve is 5th and Hill is 6th. The Constructors' title is still wide open with 10 points separating McLaren and Ferrari, with 32 points still up for grabs. The battle for third place between Williams, Benetton and Jordan is even closer, only 2 points separating them. Sauber are 6th. The Nürburgring and the penultimate round. Schumacher fans are out in force, and Michael doesn't disappoint them, taking pole position. A Ferrari front row for the first time this year, with Häkkinen 3rd and Fisichella in 4th. Eddie Irvine's made a tremendous start and is inching ahead of Schumacher as they approach turn 1. Ferrari's 1st and 2nd with the 2 McLarens behind. Towards the end of the lap, and Irvine messes up the chicane, Schumacher has the momentum and moves past his teammate and into 1st place. Eddie turned in too tightly and was forced to run wide at the exit. Race order: Michael Schumacher, Irvine, Häkkinen, Coulthard, Fisichella and Wirtz. Häkkinen is right with Irvine now and putting the pressure on the Ferrari number 2. The McLaren is tucked in behind the Ferrari, and Mika pulls out alongside the Irishman into the chicane, and he's through into 2nd position. Michael Schumacher's in for the first of 2 stops, whilst Häkkinen takes the opportunity to put in some scorching lap times. Eddie's turn in from 3rd to complete Ferrari's first round of stops. The McLaren crew are ready as Mika Häkkinen comes in. Back on track, Schumacher's flying down the start-finish straight as Mika Häkkinen exits the pit lane. It's going to be close, a race for the first corner, and Mika's through, much to Michael's surprise. And that's just what Mercedes' Norbert Haug wanted to see. Meanwhile, further down the field, there's wheel-to-wheel action with Frentzen, Fisichella and Wirtz vying for position. Heinz Harald looking to impress on home soil. Michael Schumacher's in from 2nd place for his 2nd stop, and he's not hanging around. Häkkinen's in from 1st and is even quicker, exiting the pit lane as Schumacher's Ferrari bears down. And Mika Häkkinen rejoins in front of Michael Schumacher and retains his 1st place. Eddie Irvine's 2nd stop runs smoothly, but Coulthard's is better, getting him out of front of the Irishman. Michael Schumacher's giving it all he has to catch the McLaren of Häkkinen, but with only a few laps left, Mika has a comfortable lead. The McLaren team are anticipating a win, and Mika Häkkinen doesn't disappoint them, taking the checkered flag and his 7th victory of the season.
Winning this Grand Prix, it obviously gives us advantage for the championship, and it just gives more motivation for the team to prepare the car even better for the next Grand Prix, the final Grand Prix.
The Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka is the venue for the final and deciding round. Michael Schumacher starts in pole position, creating the prospect of a spectacular battle for the large crowd. The title contenders shake hands on a fair race. The drivers are lined up on the grid and Mika is eager to get away, but the start is aborted. Trulli has stalled. The drivers have to regain their composure, ready for the restart, as any mistakes now could prove costly. The drivers wait patiently, and that's Schumacher's car jerking forward. There's a yellow flag waving, indicating a problem. It's Michael Schumacher, he's stalled his car. The German can't believe it. He knows the consequences, as does Ferrari boss Luca Di Montezemolo. Michael will have to start the race from the back of the grid. Under starter's orders and the race is on, there's a problem at the back with Herbert Sauber, but at the front Mika Häkkinen is taking the initiative, blasting away in the lead. Irvine is up to second. Schumacher's on the attack, taking position after position from his fellow racers. Up to 11th place already, Michael is really on a charge. The drivers in front are going to have trouble keeping him behind. Meanwhile, at the front, Irvine is taking the race to Häkkinen with only a small gap between them. Further back, Heinz-Harald Frentzen in third place is receiving the close attention of David Coulthard, who lost positions at the start. Schumacher's into the top 10 now, and he's continuing to carve his way through the field with relative ease. Mika's still leading, although he can't shake off Eddie's Ferrari. Hill as Damon pits in. On the outside of Villeneuve now, and he's through. The Ferrari team are hard at work on Irvine's car. A third of the way through the race, and Michael Schumacher's coming in for his first stop, pushing hard down the pit lane entry. Häkkinen's stop and the McLaren team need to get him out in front of Eddie Irvine. Ferrari are watching their man's position, as is Ron Dennis. Häkkinen rejoins the circuit in front of Irvine to retain his first place. With Coulthard's stop finish, Michael Schumacher's up to third place behind his teammate Irvine and catching. Mika is not easing up though. Tuero leaves his braking late and into Takagi, throwing debris in all directions. That's Schumacher's tyre exploding. Surely his race is over. He's kept the car under control, but the flailing rubber has seriously damaged the Ferrari's bodywork. The Ferrari is off the track, a bitter disappointment for Jean Todt. And Michael Schumacher, his championship challenge is over. Mika pits, he's congratulated by the team, but there's still a race to win. He exits the pit lane in first ahead of Irvine, as the Ferrari team console each other over a hard-fought season. Häkkinen's passing his rival's stranded car. Azaria ready with a big hand for her husband. Mika Häkkinen, Formula One's #1 driver, cruises around the last corner to win the Japanese Grand Prix and the 1998 Drivers' Championship in style. The McLaren team are delighted, and Mika is overcome as he takes in his achievements. The final standings show that Mika Häkkinen beat season-long rival Michael Schumacher by 14 points to win the championship. David Coulthard beat Eddie Irvine to third, while 1997 champion Jacques Villeneuve could only manage fifth, 1 point ahead of Damon Hill in sixth. Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Alexander Wurz have 17 points each and finish 7th and 8th, while Giancarlo Fisichella, Ralf Schumacher, Jean Alesi and Rubens Barrichello round off the top 12 drivers. Mika Häkkinen is the champion, and the first to congratulate him are the men from Ferrari. In the Constructors' Championship, McLaren and Mercedes take the honours, their first win in 7 years, while second place Ferrari scored the most points without winning the title. Bridgestone are the tyre champions. Williams are third, Jordan are fourth, their best finish since entering the series. Benetton fifth, Sauber sixth, with Arrow, Stewart and Prost the only other teams to score points. The long hard season is over, and Mika, McLaren and Mercedes bathe in the glory.
Since starting Formula One 1991, it has been a fight every year, trying to maximize the result personally and always for the team. And now with West McLaren Mercedes driving since '93, I've been continuing that effort to win races and be a world champion.